I was having Yashua Rico from Street Score. Sadly, you will not be really seeing me. You'll just basically see like a cardboard cutout of me right now because I am sick. But I mean, I've been going too long without recording a video with my voice. That's why y'all been getting highlights and like different clips from different things and stuff like that. But I felt like even though I'm sick, I got to push through it and I at least got to do this video. You know me, I try to do a video for every single thing that happens. So normally I would have done a video yesterday for day one of the set 2 of OTAs and then today doing the day 2. But, I wasn't able to do it yesterday, but I'm combining day 1 and day 2 today. So again, sorry, you won't be able to see me. I'm struggling and y'all not about to catch me on camera looking as crazy as I look right now. But we're just going to look at the little clips coming from OTAs and things like that I've already uploaded in another video. We're just going to have that cycling through while I'm talking and then just have this cardboard cutout of me basically while I'm talking. But we have a lot to discuss today. Again, since we're talking about days 1 and 2, it's a lot going on. First of all, Forbes looks like he's worth the hype. Our first round pick, 16th overall, Mississippi State corner, Emmanuel Forbes was matched up against Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson today, and he played very well. That's huge because typically when defensive players make good plays on the offense or offense makes good plays on the defense, we're like, well, is that player that good or is his opponent that bad? Well, we know Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson get busy. So if Emmanuel Forbes is balling out against them, we should rest assured that that he's just stepping up and rising to the occasion. So we got to talk about him. Also, Cole Turner is looking like the answer at tight end again. Remember, we were starting to feel this and see this last year through training camp. Cole Turner's doing the same thing, and then granted, a lot of it was because he got hurt last year, but his hype died down last year. Hopefully the hype doesn't die down this time, but this time around, he's looking like the answer at tight end again. Also, Sam Howell is ahead of schedule. We got to talk about the fact that Rivera and company are miking him up during practices, not for fans to get a preview and a deep dive into everything that's going on and what he's saying, but so that they can review it with the offensive staff after practices and go over what he needs to improve on as far as calls in the huddle, audibles, understanding the language, getting everybody situated, all of that type of stuff, man. That's huge. So, man, we have a lot to talk about because there's way more going on than just that. Also, of course, I got to give y'all like an injury update. Of course, who's still not there at OTAs and things like that. So, before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you be on the lookout for the film sessions for the entire rookie class. I know I keep saying it, but I'm really working on it. I went from being extremely busy to almost free, busy again, and then as soon as I get relatively free, I end up sick. So I'm gonna get to work on it again, the entire rookie class, and even some undrafted free agents. The channel members are gonna get the full, unedited, uncut, like hour-long versions, just like that Emmanuel Forbes film session already did, breaking down all of his interceptions. That's gonna be the type the channel members get. Everybody else is gonna get like a quick 5 to 8 minute one. So as far as in comparison to the Emmanuel Forbes one I did, where I put out like an hour-long one for everybody to see, it's gonna maybe be like 2 or 3 interceptions broken down as an equivalent. So make sure you go become a channel member so you can get the full film sessions. And without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
All right, so first of all, Jamin Davis with a knee injury. Well, he's more so recovering from an injury, and he's basically on schedule with everything that's been going on. They're not expecting him back. It's not like he's had a setback or anything. This has been a part of the plan. He has some type of cleanup in his knee. So him and John Ridgway were doing individual drills today, and they look pretty good. Like, I mean, for guys that are recovering from injuries, the way that they were moving, especially John Ridgway, it looks like we could have them back sooner rather than later. And I feel like I'm pretty confident in knowing that both of those guys, just from the way it looks, should be ready for training camp at the very least. And we can hope they're ready for mandatory minicamp. So nothing to really worry about there. But then also wide receiver Casimir Allen, who's our hope at punt returner over Dax Milne, the UCLA undrafted free agent. He did not work today because of a hamstring issue. I've been hearing a lot of great things from him as far as practices goes, and then maybe he sustained a hamstring issue and a lot of people weren't paying attention because it seemed like everybody was surprised that he wasn't out there for practice today. But either way, he's been looking really good and really pushing for that starting punt return spot. He's even been making plays as a receiver. It seems like we always have one of these every year, and I mean, it's basically like the new Dax Milne, but I'm hoping he comes with a higher ceiling as far as punt return it goes, and I hope he recovers as soon as possible. Remember, hamstring issues struggle, man. I mean, Cole Turner had a hamstring issue. We had a few guys with hamstring issues last year, and it lingered longer than it should have. Most notably, Cole Turner. Hopefully, Kazmir Allen doesn't have the same situation. Also, Antonio Gibson rode the bike for a bit and did not participate in team drills. So we got to monitor Antonio Gibson as well. But I'm really excited about his potential in this Eric Bieniemy offense. And then also, of course, outside of the injuries, you still have Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and Charles Leno not at practice. When we get to mandatory mini camps, that's when we can start to discuss like whether or not this is like a real issue or anything. You know what I'm saying? Right now, everything is voluntary. It's strongly urged, I guess you could say, but nothing's mandatory. So we have another OTAs practice that's voluntary as well. Tomorrow is in June 1st, but the mandatory mini camps, mandatory are June 6th through 8th. So that's when things get really interested, because if Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and Charles Leno are still not there at that point, if Cameron Curl isn't participating in team drills at that point, then we need to raise the red flags and see what's really going on right now. But as of right now, OTAs are definitely voluntary. It's strongly urged. It's highly suggested. And it is a little weird for them not to be there, especially since we don't exactly know why they're not there. Like, it's Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Charles Leno, those guys working somewhere else together at the very least, or are they all just three separate places? Either way, man, it's a little chaotic, but it's nothing to really worry about until we get to these mandatory mini camps, which again is June 6th through 8th. That's when we need to take note of what's going on as far as that goes. Now, shouts out to Zach Selby. We're going to go through all of his observations, and I'm going to break them down and add some points to it as well. Of course, I'm Rico Street Scores. So Zach Selby did a whole breakdown of what happened yesterday in OTAs, and he did another breakdown of what happened today in OTAs. We're going to go through it. So he first started with yesterday's OTAs, as in Tuesday, May 30th. He said it seems to be a reoccurring theme, but Eric Bieniemy appears to be getting more vocal with each practice. Perhaps part of that was because the team planned on ending the day with 2-minute drills, more on that later, but he was constantly reminding his players to pick up the pace and get in and out of the huddle with more urgency. Quote, "We need to wake up," he yelled at one point. "We've got work to do," unquote. Before we get into team drills, here are a couple of things of note from individual drills. 6th round pick Chris Rodriguez looks more comfortable to start the day, because we were hearing a couple of bad things from Chris Rodriguez, our 6th round pick. There's supposed to be like an additional bell cow running back to Brian Robinson, another toter, another, heavy break tackle, bulldozer type of guy, whereas Antonio Gibson is a 3rd down back. Chris Rodriguez is basically supposed to be like a baby Brian Robinson, but we were hearing early in off-season workouts that he was struggling a little bit, but today, and well, technically Tuesday, yesterday, was when he finally started to look a little comfortable. So that's really interesting. It's good to hear that he's getting a little bit better and starting to adjust to the NFL level a little bit and getting yelled at and the intensity of practices and things like that. Because when you come from like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Michigan, maybe some other programs like that, going to the NFL level, I hear all of the time prospects saying that college was more difficult than it is in the NFL. But Chris Rodriguez comes from Kentucky, and even though it's in the SEC, maybe their practices aren't as difficult and as tough and as rigorous as the NFL level. Maybe. I don't know much about Kentucky to really give a point on that, but I'm just guessing based off of the fact of how much he struggled coming into the early sets of practices for the Commanders. We'll see though. But it's good to hear that he's returning and starting to look more like his college self. Zach Selby said he was more decisive, ran with increased quickness, and looked as though he was acting more on muscle memory than overthinking each step. So that's really interesting. Starting to adjust to the NFL speed, which is, there's going to be some level of struggle from NFL rookies, because you got to go from college to NFL. Even if you did play in the SEC against Alabama and Georgia and guys like that, as a Kentucky player. It's just a whole nother level when you get to the NFL because it's the best of the best. And then Zach Selby said on the other side of the field, the quarterbacks and receivers were practicing throws under duress. So that's one thing that if you listen to the Logan Paulson and Craig Hoffman podcast, Logan Paulson was basically talking about how yesterday as in Tuesday was like their first time like really working on like 2-minute offense things. They were working on blitzes. This may have started going all the way back to last week a little bit as well. But either way, this is recently, like within the last 2 practices, within like the last week or so, maybe just starting yesterday. Either way, they've started to throw like interesting things at the offense, blitzing and forcing the offensive line to blitz pickup and Sam Howell to have to read hot routes and things like that. And Logan Paulson has basically said that Eric Bieniemy's doing a great job, first of all, to even start this. They normally don't even start doing things like that until way later in the offseason. So they're picking up the pace. We're going into fast mode. We're playing this game on hard difficulty. We're throwing everything at you immediately. I don't care, Sam Howell, if you've only played one NFL game in your entire career so far as basically a redshirt freshman. We're throwing everything at you, and it sounds like he's handling it pretty well. So that's really good to hear. But Zach Selby said one of the coaches will act as a blitzer, and the quarterbacks had to lob their passes over the simulated pass rush. Bieniemy was observing most of the drill, and he gave some specific praise to Curtis Samuel and Dax Milne for the sharpness of their routes and getting upfield. On 7-on-7 drills, it was a strong start for both Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett as they completed all of their passes. One play that stood out during the session was Howell's pass to De'Ami Brown, who created separation from Benjamin St. Juste to give Howell a window for a modest gain. It's great to hear that De'Ami Brown and Sam Howell connection is working out really well. I'm expecting big things from him. I was hoping that we could see some last year if Sam Howell would have started sooner, but now that Sam Howell is supposedly our franchise quarterback, QB1 going into this 2023 season, I think he's going to be able to unlock De'Ami Brown. We saw what he could do when Carson Wentz decided to finally throw the ball deep to him, and I think Sam Howell's going to get it. And once De'Ami Brown's main problem is his route running. In college, him and Sam Howell got away with him basically just running one route all day, every day, and that's just basically running a 9 route. Just go straight forward. Don't do nothing else. No comebacks, no out routes, nothing that takes any precise wide receiver route running nuance or anything like that. So now that he's improving in that and learning how to get open in the short game and not just simply running past people deep down the field, De'Ami Brown can be a complete receiver and be a receiver that can contribute to this offense. And remember, there were times last year throughout the season where we would bring De'Ami Brown in place of Jahan Dotson because De'Ami Brown's a more physical blocker. So if De'Ami Brown can become a better receiver and a better pass catching threat, that can be huge for his playing time and his contribution to this team. Because again, he already has some blocking to him. He already has some aggressiveness to him, some physicality to him. And once he becomes a better receiver, a guy that can separate and run the entire route tree, it's going to get dangerous, man. But Zach Selby continues. Speaking of Brown, it's clear that he and Howell's connection from their days together in North Carolina has lost none of his luster, and that's great to hear. I know they've been working out a lot together in the offseason as well. He continued to say Howell targeted Brown 6 times during practice, and the wideout was able to haul in 4 of those passes, even with good coverage at times. Also, moving on to the red zone, Emmanuel Forbes is one of the clear defensive standouts. That's huge. And again, we're talking about yesterday as in Tuesday, May 30th. Forbes had a big day today as in Wednesday, May 31st. So we got to put a pin in that. We're going to talk about Emmanuel Forbes right now, but we're also going to talk about what he did today, and that's huge. Emmanuel Forbes is one of the clear defensive standouts, and that's what you'd expect out of your 16th overall pick, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. So I'm really happy to hear it, but you would hope that that's what he would end up looking like when he goes out there. Either way, you still got to go out there and prove it, and he's doing it. Howell threw his way on back-to-back plays, once to De'Ami Brown and once to John Bates, and the first-round pick forced him to make off-target throws. On the throw to Bates, Forbes had the tight end pinned in the corner of the end zone with no room to stretch out and grab Howell's pass. Both Brown, 195 pounds, and Bates, 259 pounds, outweigh Forbes, so it was encouraging to see him hold his own against bigger pass catchers. That is huge, man. That weight concern is always going to be a thing that's brought up against Emmanuel Forbes. He's going to be constantly compared against Christian Gonzalez, the Deontay Banks guys that went after him, most notably Christian Gonzalez, and really just this entire cornerback class, period. And again, with him being a little underweight, we're always going to bring that up. And the fact that it's not showing, like it hasn't mattered yet, granted, It's not shoulder pads and helmets. It's not full contact yet, but so far it hasn't mattered. I mean, even in a situation like right now with OTAs with no pads, no full contact, John Bates still should be able to box him out with all of that size. He's taller, bigger, stronger, heavier, and Emmanuel Forbes is making up for it just by being a pure great cover corner. That's why I don't like the Trevon Diggs comparisons, because Trevon Diggs is hit or miss. He's either getting an interception or getting burned for a touchdown. Emmanuel Forbes, even when he's not getting an interception, is still a really good cover corner in my opinion. That's why I'm really excited about him. Zach Selby continues to say the real highlight of the session was a wild play that started with a pass from Brissett to Milne. I don't want to dive into that too much, but it's good to hear that the backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, is looking like what he's supposed to look like, even though Logan Paulson said that he's looking a little bit slower on reads than he expected. But, you know, it's the end of the day, he's the backup quarterback. He could argue he's the best backup quarterback in the entire NFL. It's good to have him. And then Dax Milne stepping up and making plays as a wide receiver is going to be big for him making his roster, because, again, a lot of us, including me, are hoping that Kazmir Allen can take over the punt return responsibilities. If Dax Milne wants to stay on this team, he better go out there and be a really good slot receiver, be able to step up at times and make plays for the offense, not just special teams. So that's good to hear. Also, here are a few defensive highlights from 11-on-11 drills. After completing the pass to Samuel, Howell's ensuing attempt to Terry McLaurin was broken up by Kendall Fuller at the last second. So Kendall Fuller is making great plays, and we're going to dive into that a little bit later as well when we talk about what happened today as in Wednesday, May 31st. Ron Rivera did say that they've tried Kendall Fuller exclusively outside. They've done Benjamin St. Juste outside and inside, Emmanuel Forbes outside and inside. Kendall Fuller is a pure outside corner. They don't want him in the slot for any reason whatsoever. Now, Emmanuel Forbes is an interesting thing because they're saying that not only are they trying him outside and inside because they just want to put their best corners out there if they can. I think Quan Martin will eventually take over inside, and then Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St. Juste will probably start outside corners, and they'll find a way to work in Kendall Fuller. It's a really interesting situation. It's a good problem to have where you kind of feel like you have too many good corners. It's going to be really hard to keep Kendall Fuller off the field, if anything, just for the money that he's making. But at the end of the day, they said that Emmanuel Forbes is also trying out inside because they feel like the game is quicker inside. You got to make quicker decisions. You got to make quicker reads. Your instincts have to be on point. You're not protected by the outside like you are when you're playing outside corner. When you're playing slot corner, when you're on the inside, you have to worry about the entire field, left and right. You're not using the outside as an additional defender helping you out. So that's one of the main reasons they have Emmanuel Forbes also playing inside as well. But again, back to my main point, Kendall Fuller is literally a pure outside corner. Me personally, as Rico Street Schools, ever want to see him in the slot again. He just doesn't have the speed for it. Emmanuel Forbes does. Benjamin St. Juste, he doesn't necessarily have the speed, but he has the length and the hips to, the change of direction skills to be able to succeed at it. It's really interesting. If Kendall Fuller, Emmanuel Forbes, and Benjamin St. Juste are on the field at the same time, no Quan Martin, I guess it will probably be between Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes, who's at slot just by default, because again, we don't want Kendall Fuller in the slot. That is a scary sight for the Commanders defense. 2 plays later, Howell's pass was intercepted by Casey Toohill as he was scrambling to the left trying to keep the play alive. So, I mean, I haven't seen the play, but that's interesting that Casey Toohill, an edge rusher, was able to intercept Howell's pass. Is that showing that Howell's height is coming into play, or is that just a ridiculous play from Casey Toohill? I do not know. In the same period, Andrew Wiley and Samuel Cosme did a solid job of passing off a stunt on the final play for the starters. That is huge, because right now my biggest concern with the offensive line is not necessarily a lack of talent, but a lack of chemistry, communication, and like things like that, passing off stunts. Like, you got to be ready to do that. Doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter if our entire offensive line is just a bunch of all pros. If y'all have not worked together, if y'all don't have any chemistry, any communication, and you're not able to pass off stunts successfully and be able to, know that your guy to your right or your left is going to have your back and they're going to do this, you don't even have to talk about it. You just know this is my job, that's his job, and we should be able to just do all of that type of stuff, man. That is huge. Without that, your offensive line will never, at the very least, be consistent, let alone great. So it doesn't matter how much talent you have. If you don't have the consistency and the communication, it doesn't matter. And that's one thing we're severely lacking right now. Now, left guard, you can also argue we're struggling with talent, but the entire offensive line as a whole, Charles Leno is the only player returning at the exact position that he was playing last year. And he's the guy that hasn't even showed up to a single offseason workout yet. So as of right now, this entire offensive line that we're working with in OTA so far is completely new, because technically Samuel Cosme is going from starting at right tackle his rookie season, then last year, between being hurt, playing right tackle, right guard, all within the same year, and even within the same game sometimes playing both. It's ugly, man, and everybody else is new. Nick Gates is center. Sadiq Charles is technically a starting left guard as of today, even though I think Chris Paul will take that over. Or when in doubt, Ricky Strongberg, once he's able to step up and start at center, Nick Gates can be a starting left guard when in doubt. And then Andrew Wiley's just starting right tackle. All of this is new. Charles Leno is the only consistent thing from last year to this year. And again, he's not even there. So it's great to hear that they're already a little bit further ahead than I expected as far as communication and chemistry goes. Now, I'm not going to lie to you all and act like the offensive line has been balling so far in OTAs, but that's a positive sign. Zach Selby also said Howell ended the day on a good note during 2-minute drills. The offense had 90 seconds to move the ball down the field, and Howell looked like he had commanded the unit as he completed 5-7 of his passes. The first 2 passes were examples of him trusting his receivers. Logan Thomas made a leaping catch over Khaleke Hudson, which is the one that you see from the clips in the slow motion with Logan Thomas going up and grabbing the ball, and that was followed up by McLaurin wrestling the ball away from Fuller, and that's just what Terry McLaurin does. If he has the ball at the same time that a DB does, Terry McLaurin just has the strength and the mentality, the physicality to always come away with it. But it's interesting that Fuller was even there. Howell targeted Brown on 3 of his last 4 attempts, with the last one falling just out of Brown's reach near the goal line. The starters ended the drive with a field goal from 41 yards on. That's really interesting. The last 4 throws that Sam Howell had in the whole practice, he targeted Dyami Brown with 3 of them. So that chemistry is definitely growing. The trust is there. Sam Howell is going to have to do a better job of trusting other receivers more, but I'm really happy to hear that Dyami Brown's getting a chance, and it's because Sam Howell's the quarterback. If we had any other starting quarterback possible, whether it would be our roster or any other roster, it could be Pat Mahomes, it could be somebody as bad as Jake Fromm from top to bottom. If it's not Sam Howell, Dyami Brown would not be getting all of these looks that he's getting. So I'm sure that he has his boy from UNC in that quarterback for him, because that's his best chance of having a real impact for the Commanders right now, and he's making the most of it. I'm not going to sit here and act like he's not, but it is really interesting and noteworthy that Sam Howell is targeting this man this much. Undrafted free agents need to find ways to stand out if they hope to make the roster, and Jalen Sample did that by supplying the catch of the day over Tariq Castro-Fields, who I've been hearing is having a great camp, and probably one of the reasons why we were comfortable with releasing Cam Dantzler as soon as we did. We didn't even get the mandatory mini camps when we released Cam Dantzler, so Tariq Castro-Fields is one of the names I'm hearing as to why they felt comfortable with making that move already, because we released a corner and didn't even sign a new corner, so that means somebody in the depth chart stepped up big time for them to be comfortable enough to release a corner that they signed off waivers throughout all of the chaos of free agency. Like, they apparently like this guy quite a bit. For them to release him before even mandatory minicamps, let alone training camp and preseason, somebody must be stepping up. And again, we released a corner and didn't bring back another corner. I think Tariq Castro-Fields that guy. But still, Jalen Sample, an undrafted free agent that stepped up and made it, according to Zach Selby, the catch of the day over Tariq Castro-Fields. Man, more power to him. Congratulations. And this was a throw by Jake Fromm. Zach Selby did say that Jalen Sample had to slow up to get in position for the catch, so it wasn't a great throw. It was kind of underthrown, which I'm not surprised about with Jake Fromm. I'm a UJ fan, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, Jake Fromm is not it. But Jalen Sample did a great job of reaching over Tariq Castro-Fields and going up and getting the ball, and I love to hear it, man. Even if you're not open, whether it's your fault or the quarterback's fault for underthrowing it like that play, I'm glad to hear that he still was able to go up there and make the play against somebody that, again, I'm hearing great things from Tariq Castro-Fields so far this offseason. Now, moving on today, as in Wednesday, May 31st, even though you may be listening to this Thursday. However, that's why I always want to say the date and the number, all of that type of stuff, the day of the week, all of that. But Zach Selby said the offseason is a time for experimentation as teams move players around in the lineup to see how they fit in rotation, where they will have the most impact. And the Washington Commanders have done plenty of that with Emmanuel Forbes, like I talked about earlier. Forbes operated mostly on the outside during his days at Mississippi State, and it was there where he became one of the best cornerbacks in the SEC and smashed FBS records and gave receivers fits. But the Commanders like their defensive backs to be comfortable with versatility, and yes, we do. I mean, we run the most mentally challenging coverage you can run, which is match coverage. That's why William Jackson struggles so much. You could argue he was the most athletic DB we had in our entire DB room as far as speed and quicknesses and change of direction, all of that. But if you're not mentally able to keep up with what Jack Del Rio wants to do, it doesn't matter. It literally just doesn't. And then he also has a tendency to panic for no reason, even when he has good coverage, and end up getting penalties. But either way, man, we love versatility. The whole Commander staff apparently loves positional flex at every position. So there's no surprise that we're pushing Emmanuel Forbes to play everywhere. Slot, outside, wherever. I'm surprised we haven't even tried him at safety just for him to get a good look at that. But Ron Rivera spoke on Emmanuel Forbes and how happy he is with his progress so far. He said, quote, he's looked pretty good. He's very quick. That's one of the things that he is, really quick. When you get those little water bug routes where the guys are trying to run options off you inside or out, he seems to handle those very well, unquote. And so it's not just his athletic ability. Sounds like Emmanuel Forbes mentally, IQ-wise, instincts and all of that is very well ahead of the curve right now, because option routes, that's huge to as a rookie within just simple OTAs, voluntary OTAs. We haven't even hit mandatory minicamps. We haven't hit training camps. We haven't hit preseason. He hasn't played his first NFL career game yet. He's far from that. He's already having great coverage and making great plays against option routes, which is completely mental. I mean, there's a lot of physical stuff there as well. You got to have the speed, the recovery quickness, and all of that explosion to be able to make plays on that as well. And, you know, with him having the length that he has, that helps too. But that's all mental. So the fact that Emmanuel Forbes is already looking good against match coverage is huge. Now, Zach Selby also said moving inside also means that Forbes needs to be more physical, but he's already shown that he isn't afraid to take on bigger players. He knocked away 2 contested passes from Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, one of which was almost intercepted. So again, like I already alluded to earlier, that man, Emmanuel Forbes, you can argue was clamping up Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson today. And again, the argument always is, if the defense looks good, does that mean the offense is bad? If the offense looks good, does that mean the defense is bad? Well, I know for a fact Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are dogs. I know what they do. I know they get busy. So Emmanuel Forbes looks good. That just means iron is sharpening iron. And that means that if anything, Emmanuel Forbes already being ahead of where we expected him is only going to make Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson even better than they already are. And the fact that I know that Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are different type of guys, the fact that Emmanuel Forbes looks that good means that he's that good. It's not like Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson got worse. That just means Emmanuel Forbes is ahead of the curve and further along in his development as a 16th overall pick. I mean, you hope that he comes in and looks that good, but you still got to go out there and prove it and show it, and he's doing that. And then Zach Selby continues, and in a smaller teaser for training camp, Forbes pulled up as he was about to collide with Brian Robinson near the sideline. Players cannot hit during the offseason, but if that play had occurred in August, we would have seen a victor walk away from that matchup, which is really interesting. As running backs coach Randy Jordan said as Forbes jogged back to the huddle, quote, I can't wait to see it, unquote. And I can't either, man. Again, it's always going to be physicality, weight, questions with Emmanuel Forbes. So once he can put those to rest, there's no problems. He's Pro Bowl corner written all over him. In my opinion, I know a lot of people are really low on Emmanuel Forbes. I'm not one of those people. I'm really excited about him. And then what he's doing in practice so far, again, no full contact, no pads yet. We still got to see the physicality part of it. But so far, he's looking pretty good. He's looking better than I expected, even though I'm one of those people that's pretty high on him. And then moving on, Zach Selby said it was a slow start for the offense during 7-on-7s, but the clear highlight of the period was a play between Sam Howell and Cole Turner, after Turner created some separation between him and Khaleke Hudson, which is, I mean, now that's the one where it's like, okay, Cole Turner's not that fast. Even as big of a Cole Turner fan as I was of him coming out of college, I wouldn't necessarily consider him a guy that could just automatically create separation against other guys. That was the thing that I loved about Armani Rogers, and what he had the highest ceiling of out of this entire tight end group when everybody's fully healthy. Armani Rogers had the highest ceiling for being able to separate on his own. But granted, most tight ends the NFL level don't really separate on their own. Even George Kittle, I always say it, is schemed open by Kyle Shanahan. George Kittle isn't out here just really shaking people out of their boots like a Travis Kelce or a Dan Waller. There's only a handful of guys in the entire NFL doing that, and I thought Armani Rogers had that type of potential because, again, I see him as a Darren Waller potential level player. So to hear that Cole Turner, who, again, to me, by no means, even as big of a fan as I am of him, never saw him as a separating type of tight end type of guy. For him to be separating against Khaleke Hudson, I'm not exactly sure if that means Cole Turner got better or if that means that was just bad coverage by Khaleke Hudson. This doesn't seem like the same situation with Emmanuel Forbes and Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, iron sharpening iron. This sounds more like Khaleke Hudson, you got to do better. But either way, the fact that Cole Turner, I'm not going to take anything away from him. Howell aired out a 30-yard pass to the tight end that landed perfectly in Turner's hands. So great throw from Sam Howell, great route, and great catch by Cole Turner. I've been hearing a lot of great things about Cole Turner so far this offseason. It's great to hear. Sounds like the same thing that was going on with Carson Wentz throwing to him in training camp last year, especially when Terry McLaurin was technically holding out. Cole Turner was stepping up big time. Turner had a strong 7-on-7 period overall, and he made another impressive grab working with Jacoby Brissett. So it didn't matter the quarterback. Cole Turner's balling whether it's Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett throwing on the ball. He stretched out the Hall in a pass near the sideline and got both feet in bounds. So he's showing the ability to get open, and he's able to toe tap against the sideline with no space available. Turner has flashed at various points this offseason in a similar way that he did last year. Assuming he can stay healthy, Turner could be set for a big step forward. And shouts out to my boy Mark Bullock of the UK because he always does great film breakdowns. Make sure you go subscribe to his Substack and things like that. I believe he either did a full film breakdown on Cole Turner or he just simply watched it and tweeted it. But basically he tweeted like, if you go back and look at Cole Turner's tape last year, I know the season was underwhelming, but there were a lot of great flashes and he was improving as a blocker. So maybe this is the year that Cole Turner finally shows us what he has to offer, man. I'm really excited. Also, linebacker Cody Barton that we signed from the Seahawks secured his first turnover of the all season today after Quan Martin deflected a pass from Howell. Barton was in the right spot to secure the ball with some celebration from his defensive teammates. So shouts out to Cody Barton for making the play and getting the interception because the play was there to be made. Thank you, because, you know, not everybody catches every interception that comes their way. Shouts out to Chris Harris, who's no longer with us, our ex-DB's coach from the past few years. You know, he used to always say, you don't like nice things, you must not like nice things, because interceptions touch people right in their hands and they drop it. So shouts out to Cody Barton, not taking anything away from him, but this play was made by Quan Martin. This was a great coverage play by Quan Martin to tip the ball up for Cody Barton to even get the interception. So I know we're going to praise Cody Barton for getting an interception, but I really want people to focus on Quan Martin being the reason that that interception was even gettable for Cody Barton. So love to hear that our second round pick along with our first round pick are both stepping up big time against great receivers. Howell's connection with Dotson could be fun to watch during red zone drills. The two connected on a pass to the end zone with Dotson holding on to the ball despite a hard fall. Remember, Jahan Dotson, even with the small as he is, looked like our best red zone threat last year, and it looks like it's continuing to happen this offseason, man. It's amazing with the size that he has, how small he is, even though he's gotten bigger, though. I've been seeing and hearing all over the place that Jahan Dotson was in the weight room this offseason. He's probably had the biggest transformation out of any player on this team from last year going into this year. So that's great to hear, and that's only going to help him be an even better red zone threat than he was last year. And again, he was arguably our best red zone threat, even with as short as and small as he was. And if he's only bigger now, but is able to keep that same speed and quickness and explosion, it's over with for people, especially with Howell throwing the ball. But granted, Howell likely would have been sacked on the play, but it was still positive to see Howell building chemistry with his receivers. And that's a common theme I've been seeing from everybody that was at the practices today. That, I mean, a lot of these plays, even the good ones from the offense, a lot of these plays would have been sacks if these were real game scenarios. So the offensive line, if I were to do a stock up, stock down, even with what we talked about earlier with the chemistry being a little bit further ahead than I thought it would be at this point, overall, even though, I mean, granted, this defensive line unit, even without Chase Montez Sweat, is between that and the receivers that are our best units on this entire team. Now, the secondary could maybe have a say in that because they're looking like they're stepping up big time. But you know, you would kind of expect this defensive line to win against the offensive line, but at the same time, as often as I was hearing that so many plays, even again, the good ones for the offense, would have been sacks in real game scenarios, that's not good. So offensive line, if I were to do a stock up, stock down, y'all would for sure be getting a stock down because that's not good to hear. Y'all got to protect our boy Sam Howell for him to even have the chance to go out there and show what he can do, because a lot of us believe in him. We think he has a lot of great talent and potential, but if the offensive line doesn't block for him, if they're Willie beaming at him from any given Sunday, what does it matter? Doesn't matter how great our receivers are and how open they can get. Doesn't matter how well Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, and Antonio Gibson run the ball. Doesn't matter how great of a play caller Eric Bieniemy is if our offensive line just can't block defensive lines. But at the end of the day, they're going against, especially when Chase Young and Montez Sweat come back, the best defensive line in football every day in practice. So if anything, when they get to the NFL regular season, it should just only get easier slightly, but we'll see. The Commanders also have implemented a new strategy with Howell and the other quarterbacks this offseason. He's been mic'd up at practice so the team can evaluate his command of the huddle and how he relays plays, and I absolutely love that. That is huge to me, man. That is really exciting news to hear that they had. I mean, I've never heard of that idea before, and that's really interesting. It's not just Sam Howell, but of course our main focus is on Sam Howell, and they basically mic him up during practice. and then they listen to everything what he's doing, and then after practice they review the footage with Sam Howell too. It's not just the coaching staff, it's not just the offensive staff. And also I want to go on a slight tangent about the fact that Rivera in his press conference also said that like that's basically not me. I have nothing to really do with that. I'm letting the offensive staff, Eric Bieniemy, and all of the guys that he has with him handle all of that on their own, and it's allowing Ron Rivera to focus on other things and really hone in. Instead of being a jack of all trades and being a master of none, he's able to focus in on a couple of things and really do his best at it rather than being all over the place like he's been the past couple of years, especially like with game management and things like that. And Eric Bieniemy should come in and help with that as well. But I love the fact that Ron Rivera is delegating a lot of the responsibilities, especially basically all of the offensive ones, to Eric Bieniemy and his staff. So he has nothing to deal with it. But that's the end of that rant and that tangent. Either way, though, I love the fact that this idea, the way that they're going about it, and the fact that they're even bringing Sam Howell in to review the footage and the mic'd up session with him, so they can go over and show him and hear him and all of that type of stuff, like what you did wrong, but also what you did correctly. Do that again. Continue to do that. Work on that. All of that type of stuff. And so that's only going to make him a better player, and I'm really excited to hear about that. I love that idea. That's one of my favorite things I've heard from them this entire offseason. I would love to get some of that footage and mic'd up footage and audio at some point in the offseason. I doubt we do as fans, but again, as long as it makes Sam Howell a better quarterback, that's more important than me as Rico of Street School is getting to hear it. I mean, I would love to, but at the end of the day, whatever it takes to make Sam Howell a better quarterback. Zach Selby also says a lot has been made about Howell being the incumbent starting quarterback this offseason. The Commanders are going to give him every opportunity to earn a job for week 1, but he still needs to prove to the coaches that he can handle it. The decision has received plenty of support from the fans, and while he does appreciate that love, he's not letting it get to his head. And I do like this quote from him. He said, quote, "I'm super blessed. The people are supporting me. Obviously, I really don't think I've deserved anything at this point, but I'm super thankful to the fans. They've been awesome to me." And shouts out to him, man, because he's a really good guy, man. Like, he went out of his way today to like sign jerseys and things like that. P. Haley put it perfectly. He tweeted, "Howell had the opportunity to walk a different route that would let him get to the facility quicker he just got done doing a long presser with the media and everything after a 2+ hour practice, but he instead made a point to stroll through to where the fans were and to interact with all of them, sign jerseys, dap people up, tell a couple of kids happy birthday and things like that." So shouts out to Sam Howell. Also, one interesting thing is that when Sam Howell was interviewed after the practice, before what I just talked about happened with him interacting with the fans during his presser, he said, as far as Eric Bieniemy's new offense, he said, quote, "It's kind of a wordy system, but it's a really good system. I've loved it so far." Howell said he's watched a ton of Chiefs film and is trying to match the footwork as well. So Mark Bullock basically said wordy systems are viewed negatively in modern NFL, but they have benefits. It allows the coach and the quarterback to be more descriptive and ensure everyone knows their assignment. Also lets them make small adjustments easier. So it's kind of like a boomer bust, higher ceiling, lower floor type of system, because it's more difficult to learn. But when you're able to get it down, and Sam Howell seems like a really smart guy, and then he's progressing and developing faster than anybody really expected, even probably more than he is. He's definitely exceeding expectations so far. I'm not necessarily saying he's a franchise quarterback already, but he's further ahead in his development than I expected. But with the way that Eric Bieniemy's offense sounds like it's working, it's more difficult to learn. It's more complicated, but once you get it, it's a way more effective way of running and calling an offense. So I love that. And I love the fact that Sam Howell was honest. He was like, yeah, it's wordy, but we're going to make it work out of the way. We're going to figure it out. Also, I love the praise that Sam Howell's been getting lately, because Curtis Samuel after practice said that Sam Howell's basically just been throwing straight dots. I mean, he's been killing it. They love him. Terry McLaurin, I believe it was yesterday or maybe a couple of days ago, said, quote, "He's taken the bull by the horns and he's really led us a lot this offseason," unquote. So that's some high praise from some high caliber players right there. I'm really excited to hear that, man. Shouts out to Sam Howell for stepping up. Shouts out to Emmanuel Forbes for stepping up. Quan Martin, Cole Turner. Sounds like those are a lot of our MVPs right now. I'm also hearing good things from Vidarian Mathis. He looks healthy out there. So that's great news as well. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like in this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Please let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, man. Please let me know that, man. Let me know how you feel about Sam Howell, Cole Turney, Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin, all of these guys. Fedarian Mathis looking healthy. All of the guys that are injured, all of the guys that are not there. How do you feel about it? Should we panic already? Or is it nothing to really worry about? All of that type of stuff, man. And without further ado, man, I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out. I'm hoping to feel better sooner so I can be back on camera. Catch y'all later, man.